Ion Vinokur. Ion Srulievich/Israelivich Vinokur, 4 July 1930 – September 2006, was a Ukrainian archaeologist, historian, professor, academician, known for his research of Chernyakhov culture and the history of the ancient Slavs. Within his academic career, he had written around 40 books and over 400 further scientific articles and materials. Biography. Ion Vinokur was born to a Jewish family in region Zhytomyr Oblast, Ukraine. His father, Israelivich, was a carpenter, and his mother, Maria Heimovna, was a housewife. In 1936, the family moved to a bigger city, Zhytomyr, in order to give kids good education. Ion had a 4 years older sister, Chenya. During the World War II, the family escaped Ashgabat, Turkmenistan, where Ion Vinokur had spent the time between 1941 and 1944. Having returned to Zhytomyr after the war, Ion Vinokur started his university education on historical faculty of Chernyakhiv State University, named after Yuri Fedkovich. There he met Boris Timashuk, renowned archaeologist and museum worker who had played an important role in the choice of the future path for young Ion and strengthened his interest in archaeology. In 1953, having graduated from the university, he returned to Zhytomyr, where he had worked in the regional historical museum and had been organising historical events and archaeological excavations. At this period of time, Ion Vinokur had published his first articles and had lectured on archaeology as invited lecturer at the city's university. In 1957, Ion Vinokur returned to Chernyakhiv University as head of the university's museum and lecturer of the course on museum management. In 1962, at the age of 32, he got his PhD in historical science from the Institute of Archaeology of the Academy of Sciences of USSR in Leningrad, St. Petersburg. His first book had been published the same year. In early 1963, Ion Vinokur moved to Kamianets-Podilsky, where he had been working for 42 years at the Kamianets-Podilsky State University, the majority of the time as head of the Faculty of History of Slavs and Special Historical Disciplines. In 1963, Ion Vinokur had founded the annual excavation practice that had turned into the serious systemic activity in the region, which had not been the case before and which has been lasting for the 50 years now. In the 1960s, Ion Vinokur had been studying settlements and graves of the Chernyakhiv culture. In the 1970s, he had focused on the famous Bukhota mentioned in ancient Slavic records and had discovered transitional settlements from Chernyakhiv culture to early Eastern Slavs. This research proved that, despite opinions of some scientists, there had been no break between the population continuity in the Dnipro-Dniester area beds of two big rivers, Dnipro-Dnieper and Dnistro-Dniester, and Chernyakhov culture evolved into the early Eastern Slavic one. In 1978, Ion Vinokur defended his professor's thesis devoted to the history of Chernyakhov culture. In 1980, he got the professor title. Further years had been devoted to the excavations and a unique discovery that has a meaning for the overall European history, the first Slavic Jewry workshop. Based on this research, a further book on Slavic Jewry has been published in 1997. In the further years, Ion Vinokur had been continuing active academic and excavation work, including publication of the widely used in Ukraine school book on ancient and Middle Ages history of Ukraine. In 2000s, Ion Vinokur studied Gubin, one more famous city mentioned in Slavic records and connected to the Balakiv culture. In 1997, he was elected as academician. His last years he had spent with Slavistic University in Kiev as head of ethnographic faculty. Ion Vinokur had founded a number of important organizations and associations devoted to ancient history and archaeology, including Ukrainian National Ethnographic Association. He had been actively taking part in the development of the next generation of archaeologists and historians by overseeing numerous PhD students and being a member of the committee granting scientific titles at Institute of Archaeology of Ukrainian Academy of Sciences. He had played a vital role in gaining the status of historical heritage for Kamianets-Podilsky. Ion Vinokur had been actively speaking at numerous scientific events, including international ones. His works had been published in Moscow, St. Petersburg, Krakow, Lublin, Sofia and Berlin. He died in 2006 at Kiev, Ukraine. Selected bibliography. 1956 Archaeological monuments of Zhytomyr. 1958 Archaeological and historical monument in Chernyakhiv, a former residence of Archbishops of Bukovina. In 1958 what the young tourists should know about historical and archaeological monuments of Bukovina. In 1960 the ancient monuments of the Eastern Volyn. A century AD. 1965 Archaeological monuments of K.H. Melitsky. A lectures to help students. 1966 The culture of population of Dniester area in a century AD. Lectures 1968 Kamianets-Podilsky. Historical and Architectural Overview 1972 History and Culture of Chernyakhiv Tribes of the Dnipro-Dniester Area 1977 Ancient Slavs of the Dniester Area 1984 Guide to Archaeology of Ukraine KH Manersky Chernyakhov Transcarpathian Areas 1990 History of Podlia 1994 Archaeology of Ukraine Textbook for Universities 1996 Ancient and Middle Age History of Ukraine Schoolbook 1997 Archaeology of the Cossack Era 1997 Slavic Jewelers of the Dniester Area 2000 Chernyakhiv Culture, Origins, History and Destiny